With the release of AMD's 2200G APU, it got me thinking about building a computer revolving around this CPU, but all the components had to allow for an easy upgrade path with as few limitations as possible. After giving the CPU and motherboard manufacturers some time to sort out any bugs and compatibility issues, everything seems to be resolved, which means it's a great time to build a PC around this CPU. For just over 550 Aussie dollars, you can have yourself an entry-level PC with options for simple upgrades in the future to go from just the basics all the way to an amazing editing or streaming rig with just a few upgrades. First up, let's check out the parts and explain why I chose them. Starting off with the CPU, which is a Ryzen 3 2200G APU, which has 4 cores and 4 threads clocked at 3.7 GHz max boost for just 138 Aussie dollars or 96 US dollars. APU means we are essentially killing two birds with one stone by this CPU having inbuilt Vega 8 graphics, so no GPU required to start us out. This CPU is a great starter and comes with its own fairly capable air cooler, and later on you can upgrade it all the way up to the 8-core 16-threaded beast 2700X in the future if required. For a motherboard, I went with the ASRock B350M Pro 4 for 89 Aussie dollars or 74 US dollars, which is micro ATX form factor on the AM4 platform. This board features 4 DIMM slots to upgrade our RAM later down the track, 2 M.2 and 4 SATA 3 ports to expand our storage if needed, a decent I/O with 4 USB 3s, 2 USB 2s and a Type-C port, and a DVI or HDMI 1.4 for display out. The B350 platform means we can overclock both the RAM speeds and the CPU frequency for some free performance, but we won't be able to run dual graphics cards. If you would like to save some money, you can go for the ASRock A320 HDV motherboard for 69 Aussie dollars or 50 US dollars, but you will be giving up 2 extra RAM slots and CPU overclocking amongst other things, so if you do plan on upgrading in the future, I wouldn't recommend this board, but if you're trying to save some money, then this is an option. I went with 2 4GB sticks of Team Group T-Force Dark 3000MHz DDR4 RAM for 139 Aussie dollars or 125 US dollars, which I feel has the best price to speed ratio, as unfortunately DDR4 is quite expensive at the moment. This RAM will only take up 2 of our 4 slots, meaning we can upgrade to 16GB down the track if needed. The APU does not have its own VRAM on board for the GPU portion of the chip, meaning games and other tasks will utilise system memory, so 8GB is the bare minimum I would recommend. Cheaper RAM at lower speeds is available, such as this 8GB kit of Patriot's signature line 2133MHz memory for 119 Aussie dollars or 79 US dollars if you are after the bare minimum, but Ryzen CPUs have been known to perform better with higher rated RAM speeds. For storage, I went with this 2TB Seagate Barracuda 7200 RPM hard drive for 73 Aussie dollars or 59 US. This will get you up and running with plenty of space for games, photos, or videos, and is extremely reliable with the best price to storage capacity ratio in my opinion. You can always add in an SSD later down the track, such as this 240GB WD Green SSD for just 85 Aussie or 63 US to increase the boot times and store your favourite game or two. If you did want to save some money, you can downsize the hard drive to the 1TB model instead for just 55 Aussie or 44 US, but I feel 1TB just isn't enough these days, with some AAA games being upwards of 50GB, let alone all the patches that get released. To power all these components and any future upgrades, I went with the Cougar VTX 600W bronze rated ATX power supply for 75 Aussie dollars or 45 US. This PSU has all black cables, making it aesthetically pleasing to the eye, and 600 watts is plenty of juice to power even a Ryzen 7 2700X coupled with a GTX 1080 Ti. You can go for a really low wattage power supply such as the Corsair VS450 for 49 Aussie or 34 US to save some money if you don't plan on upgrading to the biggest and best components in the future. 600 watts is basically the minimum I would go if you're planning on adding in a decent GPU or upgrading the CPU and or doing some overclocking later down the track. To house all these components, I picked the Thermaltake Versa H18 Micro ATX case for 49 Aussie or US dollars. This is a good looking all black case with a nice big acrylic window and a single exhaust fan with plenty of front ventilation to add in some extra fans and or a radiator down the track. There is a lot of room for expansion in this case and extra storage if needed. I would recommend adding in at least 1 extra intake fan, if not 2, for a couple of dollars at the front to get some nice airflow going through the entire case to cool the motherboard, hard drive, and any extra components you decide to add in, as a single exhaust fan just isn't enough. There are heaps and heaps of cheaper case options out there if you don't care about looks, included fans, or build quality, so I won't single out just one. Adding all that up is just 563 Aussie dollars or 448 US, which is a fair price starter PC with some decent upgrade options. If you did go for some of the suggested cheaper options, that would be 479 Aussie or 352 US, which is about $80 difference, but you do lose out on some features and upgradability. If you do need a Windows 10 key, it is possible to find them listed on eBay for a couple of dollars, and I have not had any issues with using these. If they aren't coming up listed on your home eBay, try changing the region to worldwide and the listings then should appear. Now that's all out of the way, let's build this beast. For an overclock, I managed to get the CPU to 3.9 GHz across all cores at 1.375 volts stable and the memory to its XMP profile of 2933 MHz. For the Vega 8 GPU, I managed to bump up the core clock speed from 1100 MHz to 1500 MHz at 1.25 volts. To do all this overclocking, you will need to download the Ryzen Master software from AMD's website. I benchmarked all these games at the lowest possible settings at both stock speeds and overclocked in 1080p resolution, but I would strongly recommend playing at 720p if you were to use this APU yourself for smoother gameplay. I put the CPU through a Cinebench R15 stress test in which it received a score of 527 at stock and 577 overclocked, which is a decent score for a 4-core CPU. Next up is my 1 minute Battlefield 4 1080p 60fps render test in which it rendered out in 3 minutes 24 at stock speeds and 2 minutes 42 once overclocked, which is a nice improvement. If you would like to see the full Battlefield 4 render test video, the link is in the description, and in the description of that video will be the times and links to all the computers I have built on this channel. My first upgrade recommendation would be to add in a decent dedicated graphics card such as this Asus Phoenix 3GB GTX 1060 I got on sale for 279 Aussie or 250 US, as this APU is quite weak. This card will allow you to play games comfortably at 1080p very high settings and make it an overall better and smoother experience. Alternatively, if you wanted to go for an AMD card instead, an RX 570 will set you back about 350 Aussie or 300 US. The second-hand market is also an option for a GPU upgrade, as you can get a GTX 780 for 150 Aussie, a 780 Ti or 970 for around 200, or even a 980 Ti for about 400 Aussie, which are all great options. For AMD, you could go for an R9 380 for roughly 150 Aussie dollars, or an R9 390 or RX 470 for about 250 Aussie, which are also good upgrade options. Let's check out the benchmarks for the 1060 at some better settings now it's been installed and see the performance increase you can expect from an investment such as this. For temperatures, the CPU idled at 27 degrees and reached a maximum of 64 degrees at stock settings. Once overclocked, the CPU idled at 28 degrees and reached a maximum of 67 degrees after a 20-minute AIDA64 extreme test. Damn, that little included cooler with stock paste does a brilliant job and stayed reasonably quiet. The GTX 1060 reached a maximum of 67 degrees, which leaves plenty of headroom if you want to overclock that as well. In conclusion, it is possible to game on this APU, but for me personally, even in esport titles, it was not an enjoyable experience unless the resolution was lowered to 720p. Don't get me wrong, this is an amazing feat to be able to game on something this size and would be great to use for something like going back and playing some older classics and less intensive titles with ease. Investing in a GPU, whether it be secondhand or new, would definitely be the top priority, then adding in an SSD for better boot times and you will have a perfect gaming PC. There are many options for upgrades or cheaper parts to really customize this build to your own personal needs. This is just one of many options, and I hope from my suggestions you can create your own. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, and if you really enjoyed it, please consider subscribing for more PC builds and other content in the future. If you have a suggestion, question or criticism, leave a comment, and thank you very much for watching.